I can't just have some psychopathic murderers getting to the vault before I do. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cute that y'all think you're the heroes of this little adventure, but you're not. Welcome to Pandora, kiddos.
Borderlands. It's a world peeled straight off of a comic book page. With its distinct cel-shaded art style and Mad Max themes, it's no wonder in a world full of some of the greatest video games to date that they would have to make themselves stand out like an anime protagonist within the crowd. And they did, with great success, but it's no secret Borderlands and its developers, Gearbox, have been through quite the rough patch in recent years, dealing with seemingly an unhinged CEO, rocky releases similar to the Train of Pandora, and a fandom that has justifiably lost hope in this once sensational IP. Now each release having more weary concerns than the last. And that's the case especially for Borderlands 4, set to release in mid-September. With trailers both concerning and somewhat hopeful, I'd like to look back at the two main titles that made this game so iconic and so notorious, with the goal of hopefully then we can piece together the puzzle that is what kind of Borderlands game we should hope for. Yeah, you already saw that joke in the title, didn't you?
When you're ready to start the party, please smack Mr. Fleshstick in his bitch face.
And let's just get this out of the way. Yes, I know the original Borderlands is highly regarded, but for the sake of this video and the fact that I haven't actually played it, I'll only be talking about these two. Because just like in the case of Call of Duty Black Ops, the first one had to walk, so the second one could run. Then the third just fell straight on its face.
That's okay!
So let's grab a gun, leave Claptrap at the bottom of the stairs, and catch a ride straight into this. Starting off, we can look at how they handled their introduction into the franchise. As with Borderlands 2, we are told a tale that bridges the events of the previous game into the game that we are about to play, helping lay out the groundwork in little crumbs to then let the game build up its story. As you can see, not everything is given to you straight away, just enough to figure out the game's direction as Hyperion has come to the planet of Pandora to take its newly found resource, and sets up the clear antagonist of the story, Handsome Jack, who is the face of the Hyperion Mega Corporation. But also, we're introduced to the playable characters, also known as Vault Hunters, in a train fight cinematic. The train ride was an ambush set up by Jack, but Axton, the commando, who likes to go commando, Maya, the newest siren and our stand-in Pretty Lady! Salvador, the gunzerker, aka Joe Rogan,
Just come to make sure your baby's okay.
and then Zero, the mysterious badass edgelord. This action sequence, which displays their abilities and characteristics, ultimately ends up with a booby trap set up by the clearly deceitful Handsome Jack, causing the train to explode, attempting to kill the player as the cart comes barreling and crashing into an icy tundra. Meanwhile, in the Borderlands 3 cinematic intro, it has no link depicting past events or characters, except for the inclusion of the characters as small illustrations, but no names or actions are mentioned. No mention of Handsome Jack, what happened to him. Unlike Borderlands 2, it acts as if these people are just throwaway characters from Marx's story, forgettable and unimportant to the overall Borderlands story, making your efforts of the past feel just as null. But maybe I'm reading into things. It's not like the game is going to be heavily reliant on pre-existing characters in the series. Moving on, we are told Lilith is recruiting a team to track down all the vaults in the galaxy, but she isn't the only one, as we see two new faces, supposedly a new threat, unlike anything else we've seen before. And the illustration ends, just like in the past intro, as we open up to the land of Pandora. Once more with the classic style of intro, with creatures being run over, and soon being introduced to our new cast of Vault Hunters. Now, I want you to watch this, and see if you can tell me exactly what I have a problem with here. As they enter the saloon, meant to be a meetup point for Lilith's team, it's trashed, and there are bandits now inhabiting the space, just like most small towns in Pandora. and after an exchange of glares, the new characters display their skills on the bandits with an ensuing brawl and gunfight, killing them all. In this, we are given the showcase of skills from Flak, the Beast Tamer, and Robot with a Thirst for Blood, few mistreated robots gaining sentience and killing humans.
Coincidence? I think not!
Then Moz, the generic mech pilot.
Coincidence? I think not!
Amara, the next compulsory siren.
Coincidence? I think not!
And Flint, the hologram and decoy user with crippling loneliness.
Coincidence? I think not!
And once they were finished, our storyteller Marcus shows up in his bus to take us off. Now, did you see the problem? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but what was the purpose of killing all those bandits and psychos? They weren't posing a threat. Sure, they looked bad, but they were just at the saloon. Who's to say they caused all the damage? Them tearing down the rebellion banner? Well, they were also spray painting, so they could have just been renovating. I mean, look at all the trash bags. Clearly they were cleaning up. And do you see any dead bodies? No! Just because this was the meetup point doesn't mean the Crimson Rangers owned or took care of it. I'd argue it seems abandoned. Then before all the killing, the only weapon to be seen was in the hands of a psycho in the back of the room, long before the Vault Hunters had even entered. Was it anything particularly dangerous? No, just an axe in a world full of guns. I mean, look at them. As soon as the Vault Hunters entered, heads turned, but no one's reaching for a weapon. Even this big dude is calmly crossing his arms, which makes him seem like he's more ready to ask them to leave than to try and kill them. It's intimidating, but it's just like entering a saloon in any other story. The very act of crossing their arms, whether to reach for a gun or throw a punch, thereafter would put them at a significant disadvantage. It's only after the Vault Hunters initiate combat do these bandits try and fight back, before being mercilessly slaughtered, which is completely unlike our characters in Borderlands 2, who were provoked first and only afterwards reacted to the danger, instead of being proactive towards it. Because if they did, there would just be a bunch of filthy bandits! The story. Now, as for the stories and introductions of Borderlands 2 and 3, they take two drastically different, but also unapologetically similar approaches to familiarizing you with the gameplay and its story. In what I would call the gameplay introduction, they are unapologetically similar, and that's a good thing, as each of the games has a recognizable sequence of events to familiarize new and old players into the world, as each time we meet Claptrap, who is utterly useless, getting himself into trouble. We have to fight through enemies and clear out a small camp full of bandits with a mini-boss, which then teaches us how to use our guns and abilities to fight through everything. And at this time, our intrusive thoughts are intruded on, as the voice in our head takes form in a woman.
And the women! The women! We will always treat with respect!
Nothing is more badass than treating a woman with respect!
But yeah, in my opinion, this is ultimately a good decision, both a good gameplay and creative decision, as it creates a feeling of reminiscence and familiarity to the older titles. The story is, well, a different story, because Borderlands 2 is a game about a group of Vault Hunters coming to Pandora for a multitude of reasons, whether it be to look for a challenge, self-discovery, to escape a different threat, or for fun. Regardless of circumstance, you're guided by a strange lady in your head. Follow Claptrap and go to the only sane...
You'll never take me alive, you robotic son bitch!
Might sting a bit.
Looks like it works to me.
mostly sane civilization left, Sanctuary. Unofficially joining the Crimson Raiders, and after finding out our leader is in a dire straits, having gone missing, we're led to find the Firehawk, who, once we fight our way through bandits and spider crab things, we discover the Firehawk is actually Lilith, giving a badass but also nonchalant entrance.
Sir.
before returning to Sanctuary. He then concocts a plan to rescue Roland and stop Handsome Jack from waking the warrior that's kept sealed within the vault, using it to make him unstoppable. During this, we would have to traverse various terrain as we shift from icy tundras to barren deserts, from deserts to rocky mountains, from mountains to iridium volcanoes, then research facilities, a Hyperion city. We also then have to go above and below ground to go to different facilities, giving Pandora a perspective of scale and depth, all so vastly different, all equally as deadly. And while the premise is very simple and the main goals are set out fairly early into the game, it's not all that goes on, as these are just the boiled down key objectives, and there are other sets of challenges and roadblocks keeping you from getting there. You need to replace a generator that's keeping Sanctuary from being blasted by Hyperion's discount Death Star. You need to download a car. You need to infiltrate a bandit camp, fight your way through a wide range of enemies, and defeat a few bosses.
Oh dear.
It's a trap!
Return to Sanctuary, which has now ended up in the sky, and recruit some familiar faces to help you in the fight against Jack. But then for Borderlands 3, as expected, our new ragtag team of Vault Hunters head out to join the Crimson Raiders. Moz to escape a military force that is after them. Black for some good old-fashioned murder. Amara for a challenge, and Zane to retire from bounty hunting. Nevertheless, we are guided by the voice of Lilith to follow Claptrap and clear out a large bandit camp that has been trouble for the Raiders, but also to set up camp there. We then run a few errands collecting fragments to a vault key, giving them to Tannis to inspect. We also help Ellie out with the catch-a ride. But then, as we complete grabbing fuel for a ship off of Pandora, we're ambushed, and Lilith is isolated from the player, put in a dire situation. But we'll go back to that in due notice, don't you worry. After that, Sanctuary has now evolved, from a city on the ground, then one floating in the sky, to a spaceship, its third and final evolution. Unless they decide to give it a mega evolution.
Hey, that really sucked!
Once on board, the mission is fully laid out. Recruit some familiar faces, get past any barriers in our way, and stop the Children of the Vault from reaping the power across various planets to make them unstoppable.
I say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Wait, they're the same fucking game. These plots are near identical, just with a different texture pack, but the new one has cheaper paint. Seriously, if this game was made today, people would say it was AI. And I wish that was the case. But instead, it's just poorly plagiarizing the last. Literally the can I copy your homework meme. Like, I get it. What do you do with something that's successful? You do it again, just a little different. It's called repetition and difference. Emphasis on the and. What you don't do is one or the other. You do both. The repetition should be something core to the game, like sirens and vaults. Those are unavoidable. But my god, this is stuff you learn in high school. We could have at least seen some sort of adjustment that wasn't just ever so slightly adjusting the flavor text.
You should have seen your face! You were like, oh, my powers! Brother, this guy stinks!
Right? So I scoop out his stupid little eyeballs with it, and his kids are all, wah! And I can't even, oh, yes.
But maybe that's a good thing, because while everything in the story is questionably similar, almost everything that's new is worse. Such as the world building. Whereas on Pandora in Borderlands 2, you had various terrain to introduce different enemies and environments as you progress, making it feel like a fully fleshed out planet, with a story to uncover. In Borderlands 3, it just feels like a bundled stereotype of itself, just being a barren desert planet, with psychos and skags running about. And there's no explanation for this outside of lazily saying it's a different part of the planet. But that begs the question, out of all possible locations on Pandora, why the barren desert? Somewhere where you're 10 times more exposed and 100 times more deprived of resources. Like, Lilith, do you realize you and everyone else needs water to live? I'm saying that like Sanctuary's location in Borderlands 2 didn't just have one small bridge in and out. So why are we letting her make all the decisions again? And before anyone comes at me, yes, I understand it makes sense you can't fit the whole of a previous game into a new one. But we could have at least seen some locations like the fridge or caustic caverns. But I guess that would have taken away from the idea of exploring something other than Pandora, and would have exacerbated the idea that every planet is going to be one style and one style only. What I will say though is, while I'm not overly happy by the lack of variety in each new planet, the orbit view menu does show that we're only exploring different segments, which leaves room for future expansions and additions. So it gets a point for leaving the door open partially. A door they'd never seemingly use, but a door nevertheless. And now it's time we move on to something I would say are the things that really pull these two games apart. And don't worry, I'm not going to repeat the same joke again. Who would do that?
Coincidence? I think.
This is the moment things actually took a drastic change, and what made Borderlands 2 a gaming icon, Borderlands 3 a total groan fest. The villains. Borderlands 2 had a villain that soon became one of gaming's most iconic, alongside names like Stephen Armstrong, General Shepard, Bowser, GLaDOS, Sephiroth, and Eggman. Typically speaking, if you look up any list for gaming's best villains, you'll often see Handsome Jack somewhere near the top, and with well-founded reason. Because up first, after trying to kill us, the very next thing he does after finding out we're alive is to comedically tell us to off ourselves.
So if you could just do me a favor and off yourself, that'd be great. Thanks, Pumpkin. I will pay you to kill yourself. I've got a perfect spot all picked out for you. And you don't want to? That's fine. Call the Hyperion Suicide Prevention Hotline and you'll get nothing. But if you want a huge reward, you jump off that cliff and become my bitch. Okay. I guess you just killed yourself. I just want you to remember one thing. You're a sellout. You killed yourself because I paid you to. You're a bitch. All right.
And then after that surprisingly didn't work, he calls us like he's our bestie, simply trying to antagonize and cause drama, bad-mouthing the Crimson Raiders with his quick wit, snarky comments, and charismatic voice. As he doesn't exactly see us as a threat at this point, more of a minor inconvenience. He's toying with us. While we hear about his heinous acts, both past and present, but despite his wish to end us, he wants to have fun with it. Not directly getting involved himself, but seemingly as if he's watching from the comfort of his chair inside Hyperion. As if our actions are nothing more than a show.
Hey, how did Freckles suck? How's your day been, buddy? We haven't really talked much since I left you for dead. Hey, you think you'll freeze to death out there? No, probably not. Bandits will get you first. My day? Been pretty good. Just bought a pony made of diamonds. Yeah, because I'm rich. So, you know, that's cool. Goodbye. I'm racking my brain trying to think of a name for that diamond pony I bought. I was going to call it Piss for Brains in honor of you, but that just feels immature. Hey, maybe Butt Stallion? Nah, that's even worse. I'll tell you what, I'll give it some more thought.
And while we progress, he becomes slightly more annoyed, still antagonizing us, but with a slight bit of grit in his teeth. Having a little bit of personal involvement as he has Bloodwing, Mordecai's bird, experimented on. And he sends down more of his bots just to slow us down. But that all changes as soon as we're nearing his daughter, who has been aiding us in stopping Jack. She wanted us to end her suffrage, as he'd been using her to siphon energy into the vault key. His jokes are, well, absent, and there's more of him just glorifying his brutality, as his tone shifts, threatening us till eventually we free Angel, killing her, and as a result, Jack does this.
We got the vault key, but this isn't over yet. We gotta find Jack and take him out. Lilith, take the vault key to Tannis. I'm going after Jack.
Roman!
Son.
You bastard! I'm gonna...
Language. What's that saying? Don't pick a fight with a man with nothing left to lose. See, I'm gonna show you just how much you have to lose. And I got the most...
And he is never the same after that. He snapped, becoming cold and calculated as he immediately takes control of the situation, effortlessly capturing Lilith, showing how, although she had been a thorn in his side, she was never a threat to the tactical leader of Hyperion. Oddly, this is where we don't see a more psychotic Jack. We actually see a much more human version, as an angry father that just lost his daughter. And it's the culmination of all this that helps make Jack such a compelling villain. Because while from what we heard from Angel, he's the bad guy, the perspective and morality shifts when we look at Jack's point of view, as we learn he wasn't the bad guy, at least if we were to ask him. He sees us Vault Hunters as bandits, child-killing psychopaths, the same as the inhabitants of Pandora, and in his eyes, he was trying to protect his daughter, even being able to forgive her for her treason. But with her gone, even with her last words being that of hate towards her father, he still forgives her, only pushing him further to following through with his plans, and now avenge his daughter, wanting to be the one to end us for good, as any good father would. Handsome Jack is both the most deranged and most human character, dealing with all very real emotions, putting him onto this path of psychosis. With the abuse from his grandmother, the love and loss of his wife and daughter, while also trying to climb the corporate ladder, being belittled and treated like trash the whole way. Even as he's about to die, he says, "You're the bandit, and I am the goddamn hero." So despite his evil acts, his perception of us, and more importantly himself, had been unwavering, believing everything he was doing was for the greater good. The same could not be said for the children of the Vault, more specifically, Tyreen and Troy, the leaders of this cult. As in Borderlands 3, we're not dealing with the leader of the most powerful corporation with a mission to purge the world of its crazed and deranged, using his intelligence, power, and manipulation to nearly control our every action. Our newest threat are influencers, who believe they are owed everything the world has to offer. Wait, that's just every influencer nowadays. Yeah, Tyreen and Troy are unapologetically annoying. For some reason, Gearbox decided in the year 2019 to try and make a melodramatic meta-commentary on online personalities. And why? It was a strange shift from the games of the past, as everything prior to this had no meta-commentary. Unless you wanted to make the case for corporations being power and money-hungry businesses, but that's not exactly meta. That's just a fact of life. Even in Borderlands 2, it wasn't shoved in your face the same way, except with Butt Stallion. It served a purpose. Our antagonist Jack needed a place to keep his daughter safe, and away from bandits and people who try to sell her for being a siren. Her powers were out of control, so he needed to keep her in a controlled environment. And to let his daughter be free and safe, he needed to eradicate all the murderers, all of which he wouldn't have been able to do if he hadn't harnessed his daughter's powers to gain further power and influence on the Megacorp, allowing him to further protect his daughter and her secret, while working towards the mission of cleansing Pandora. But all of this wasn't so on the nose it got on your nerves. It was made clear through subtle dialogue as you progressed through the echoes left around. But in the case of Tyreen and Troy, as they yap on about the same annoying YouTuber and influencer stuff, trying to win the popularity contest, saying stuff like,
Don't forget to like, follow, and obey.
Side note, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. But I don't know if it's because I've always been chronically online, but this doesn't really create the message they think it does. And they have this more of a mockery rather than a commentary stance, taking shots at people who are a core part of their audience, and Gearbox would never do that. But where I'm listening to Jack make fun of me, I'm invested and I'm attentive to the latest bit of gossip he has to say. Whereas if Tyreen is on the line, I'm zoning out, just waiting for it all to end. There's barely anything new, just her intro, Yapathon 500, something about the Vault, followed by later Superfan. Your entire playthrough, the only reason you'd want to beat them is to shut them up for being a walking, talking, headache-inducing parasite.
Wow, no.
But not only that, in doing so, they broke Borderlands codes and conventions. How? Well, firstly, since the beginning, there's always been 6 sirens at any given point, and they can only ever be female. So, what happens if one of those sirens has a conjoined twin? During the events of Borderlands 3, we know a total of Lilith, Maya, Amara, Aurelia, Tannis, Tyreen, and Troy. Now, if my math serves me correct, that's 7. Side note, I'm going to add this here because while I was researching to writing another section, I discovered that Aurelia isn't actually a siren. I was so convinced that she was. I know it'd been a while since I'd played the pre-sequel, but her fight in Borderlands 3 had me certain she was. I mean, look at this fight and tell me these ice moves and tornadoes are just advanced pieces of tech. And being super speculative here, I think she may have originally been designed with that in mind, because in everything that we see from her model, animations, and concept art, she doesn't show any of her skin at all. So we wouldn't know for sure, as her marks would have been covered up. Probably the best thing you could do as a siren, but hey ho. In every mainline Borderlands game, there's always been a playable siren. In addition to this, the production time and release of Borderlands 3 and pre-sequel were only about a year apart, so there is a chance it was something that was retconned for the sake of Borderlands 3's success. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, as technically the numbers thing does make sense. I just got it wrong, and wanted to mention that, as I will still refer to this as a problem. Also, Troy is a dude. His existence breaks 2 of the main rules of Borderlands, and while they were conjoined, we also know the powers of a siren aren't one that a person is born with. They aren't shared, they're transferred between person by death. So, in the case of Troy, as soon as they were separated, he should have lost his connection to the ability. Which actually would have made more sense now that I think about it. Because while conjoined, they technically shared one body, keeping the siren number at 6. But also, then it would have kept in line with sirens being only female. They really could have just clarified something like this, and it would have fixed a major world-building fallacy. Then they could have just given Troy tattoos to bait and switch Lilith and Maya, which would have also made them appear more cunning and deceiving. They could have then made Troy more tech-savvy, keeping the power dynamic in balance between the twins, as they make Troy more of the deal maker and smarter than he looks, despite not having powers. This would have still led to him discovering he may not need Tyreen and her powers to be powerful, aka a real Handsome Jack 2.0, as these two clearly try to be. Speaking of which, as we transition to talk about the characters, I'd like to talk about something that truly displays the level of poor writing Borderlands 3 and the Calypso trims. Speaking of which, as we transition to talk about the characters, I'd like to talk about something that truly displays the level of poor writing Borderlands 3 and the Calypso twins received when they were introduced. After the player committed vehicular homicide to fuel their ship, remember when I said we'd get back to it? Yeah, this is it. Lilith is isolated. The shutters to Ellie's workshop slam shut, separating the player from Lilith as she is ambushed by Tyreen and Troy. This scene just hurts my head to think about and watch, so bear with me. Firstly, Lilith is ambushed and separated from the player as mortar shells rain in. So why doesn't Lilith just teleport away as soon as the ambush started? We see prior to this, she frivolously uses it to transport herself short distances. Hell, in Borderlands 2 she teleported a whole city. She even does it less than a minute later to clock Troy in his fuckboy face. So why not in this instance? She's under siege, backed into a 1 versus 2 fight. There's nothing stopping her from leaving. Maybe if we saw characters we cared about board the ship, and the Calypsos proved they had the ability to kill those innocents, Lilith would have cause to stick around. But we don't see that. Instead, she refuses their demands, and Tyreen uses the Force to make her stumble. Actually, that's not the Force. The Force looks like this. this was more of a slight gust of wind. Regardless, he loses hold of the map, landing in Troy's arms, and he starts the world's worst World Star livestream. We watch an epic battle between two rare sirens, and it looks like shit. Remember, they probably test screened this in their offices and somehow came to the conclusion ripping two Star Wars moves and hitting an Avengers pose would make for an epic fight and a way to display their raw power. Even so, the most effective move that actually carried any weight in this fight is just a plain old fist fight. Like, Gearbox, you're about 4 years too early for the writer's strike. This is no excuse. Soon after, while Tyreen takes her time to brush the dirt off her dictator's jacket, Lilith sees Troy's siren marks. Not that he can use the powers, just tattoos which, added with the "you're a siren, runs in the family," would have been the perfect deception and distraction for Tyreen to sneak up and do what she does next. Grabbing Lilith by the neck, a character that has been fighting bandits, psychos, and Handsome Jack, you'd think at this point in her career she'd know not to let an enemy, let alone a siren, out of her sight, in case of a sneak attack or shots in the back. But once again, I digress, as she's held up in a one-armed chokehold, somehow unable to break away. But don't worry, in a world like Pandora, everyone has a "Lilith, where's your gun?" There's no way this isn't written by a literal Goliath with Crayola crayons shoved up their nose. How the Tyreen! This is the perfect representation of what not to do in your story and your animation, because not only does this have 3 times the last game's budget, this weightless fight made the twins look less threatening than Claptrap is deadly. He's pulling his cock out! But also has completely ruined Lilith as a character, as it turned her into a cowering, whimpering mess as she crawls on the floor. Even Tyreen can see this, naming her titles before belittling her: Legendary Vault Hunter, Killer of the Destroyer. This would have been the equivalent of making Zero say "nya" and turn into a Hello Kitty girl. Why is Lilith cowering? Why hasn't she got a gun? Why doesn't she just leave? Why does the leader of the Resistance not have an ounce of situational awareness? Why is she losing to a character with seemingly no combat training? And
Where's my goddamn electric car, Bruce?
all this time, as this fight has been going on, we, the Vault Hunters, have just sat around and done nothing. We literally only leave through the back door after the fight, taking this roundabout route to reach Lilith, which, once again, we only make our move when she's about to be killed by psychos. Which begs the question, why didn't we make our move sooner? Because while we are absent in cutscenes, the story assumes all Vault Hunters are present. So we'd have 1.5 sirens versus 2 sirens, an assassin, a murderous robot, and a soldier with a walking tank. Now, why would they write this so poorly? Is it because they're incompetent? Or that they knew this scene didn't make sense and were too far in production to make small changes to the story that would have ultimately had a larger impact and forced a large part of the script to be rewritten? This is all speculation, but I'm going with the latter.
No time to read a list. Approved. Next.
But actually, I think with my amateur-ass writing, I could do a better job. So let's give it a go. If I was to change this scene for it to make more sense that results in the same outcome, we start off with seeing Moxie, Marcus, and co boarding the ship. As we arrive with the fuel, the ambush starts. But one of the missiles hits a wing on the ship, and instead of going straight to the cutscene, we hear Tyreen and Troy over the echo, mocking and threatening the innocents. Psychos cheering as they close in on us, posing imminent danger to our friends. Meanwhile, Tyreen is demanding the map. While we've been locked inside like normal, Ellie can't get the door open to Lilith as Troy has tampered with it. We try ramming it with the truck, making a dent, but not blowing a hole for us to reach them, raising the tension. But since he was on the one side, Ellie manages to get the back door open, as we take the same long path as before, fighting through enemies as we hear them fight. And once we make it to the arena-like area, you see a big, deep red bubble with chains swirling around it, similar akin to those of Tyrene's powers, which, because Siren powers haven't been explained and are still shrouded in questions, wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. But the bubble would serve to block anyone from the outside, aka the Vault Hunters, from interfering, and inside the bubble could have the growing effect of affecting anyone without the leech ability, making the fight between Tyrene and Lilith more plausible, and could have the added effect of not allowing Lilith to teleport away. This is where the cutscene would naturally take place. As Troy starts to stream, they fight, Lilith is faked out by Troy's quote-unquote siren tattoos, then, once in a chokehold, for the love of God, give Lilith a sidearm, like a Hyperion or Maliwan pistol, which Troy could shock like a targeted EMP, rendering it useless, which both makes the twins look more capable and conniving, but also not turn Lilith into an incompetent leader. Boom, less than 400 words and it's already more interesting, more plausible, and doesn't ruin any characteristics involved. And this is exactly why Tyrene and Troy have such little impact and such a little effect on us throughout the game. Because unlike the characters of Borderlands 2, they seemingly don't have any story built outside of being born to who they are now. It's a hard jump that gives no power, no understanding behind the words or their actions. Now for the characters. In Borderlands 2, we meet a bunch of new NPCs with deep, interesting personalities and backstories, many returning, but also many new. With all the returning vendors, Tannis, Claptrap, Angel, Moxie, but then new ones like Scooter, Ellie, Sir Hammerlock, Tiny Tina, and Handsome Jack. And while I'm almost definitely forgetting some, these characters make themselves notable even for their short stays. And most which are just there for the one-off side quests are not treated as throwaway characters, all of them acting and speaking differently, keeping them distinct, as Tannis is a heavily recluse shut-in who doesn't do people very well, partially due to her autism, but also how she'd been treated by others.
Yesterday, I had a conversation with another human being. Granted, it was only a conversation inasmuch as my grunts of social terror could be taken as human speech, but Roland did not seem to mind.
Hey, you know how I got my hands on that vault key? See, a few years back, Wilhelm and I paid a visit to your little friend Tannis, and we beat her for hours. We ripped it out of her broken fingers. But we let her live because that's what heroes do. They show mercy.
In Moxie's case, you find out through quests, Moxie isn't just this sexy bartender everyone buys a Jacob sniper to admire.
Discrimination!
But before all that, she was a mechanic born into the Hodunks clan, with a thick hick southern accent, unlike that of her seductive and flirtatious tone. She escaped it alongside her two children, Scooter and Ellie, who both retained their southernness and their love for mechanics. And as time goes on, you learn even more. Meanwhile, Tiny Tina is an 11-year-old demolitions expert, who, while is seemingly very alone and isolated, is very extroverted towards meeting people, despite what her past would lead you to believe. Which brings me to, everything isn't given to you on a platter with a silver spoon. A lot of times, you can tell something is off and strange about these characters, but you're unsure as to why. Which is why you'll often find audio logs detailing specific points in their lives, or completing quests will have them reveal parts of themselves to you. Which, while audio logs are typically frowned upon in video games, seen as a cheap way of exposition, in the case of Borderlands, it works. Because of its open world looter-shooter aspect, collecting is the name of the game. You take the odd jobs from NPCs for a reward, whatever the motive may be.
Bong! I noticed you haven't shot me in the face! Curious as to why! Maybe you're weighing the moral pros and cons, but let me assure you that— oh my god, shoot me in the goddamn face! What are you waiting for? Thank you!
And it's also a way of connecting characters and places. As we learn through audio logs, Tiny Tina is a traumatized girl, bordering on being a psycho after witnessing her parents be experimented on and ultimately killed. She gains the infatuation for explosives, as her mother, prior to being experimented on, gave her a grenade. Yes, this is very normal. To escape, and her mother's words echoing in her head. Run, Tina.
Oh! Mommy?
Just run! Tina! Run!
She also then became unable to ever stop moving, fearing what may happen if she did. But not only that, as while that built the foundation of her story, it was only part of it, as later on she would meet Roland, and he would become like a father figure to her, being one of, if not the only person she could depend on. So when she was informed of Roland's death, it took a much more substantial impact on her, as the very loud girl became solemn and lost.
Jack would kill Roland. This strikes Tina particularly hard, and in an unreleased side mission, the Vault Hunters inform her of his death.
Roland's dead? Thank you for telling me. Please go now.
Also, while I didn't want to mention DLCs, for the case of Tiny Tina especially, I think it's important. Just to show how the writers developed these characters inside the game they first appeared in. As while coping with the loss of Roland, Tina, Mordecai, Brick, and Lilith all play Dungeons & Dragons. And in doing so, you get a glimpse into Tina's mind. She struggles to accept Roland's death, to the protest of her other friends. And how, while Angel was helping the Crimson Raiders, she was the reason Roland was in the room when Jack pulled the trigger, treating Angel as if she was the one pulling the strings and being the one to blame, which is why Tina makes her an enemy spider-human hybrid, forcing her to say things such as, "I am to blame for all this, and I don't want your sympathy," as she thinks if it wasn't for Angel and Jack, Roland would still be with her.
She is the prettiest.
Tina, why don't we just start now and figure that out later?
Come on, girl. You know we gotta wait for Roland before we start.
Tina, Roland's not coming, right? He's not here anymore.
Yeah, he's probably running late or something. We'll just start now.
Enough! You can't just deny what Jack did to Roland.
Can't hear you.
She's right, Tina.
So do you want to do some side quests, or?
You need to accept it. Roland is dead.
I know! I know! But it's my story! And...
You know what? It's okay. He doesn't have to go.
Not if you don't want him to.
Yeah, keep going. I actually want to know how the story ends.
Thank you. As the sorcerer's fatal spell hurtled toward the oblivious night, it was clear that only a miracle would save him. But luckily for the knight, a miracle is exactly what he got.
Ah! Hell yeah!
So what did you guys think of that fight? I'm looking for some feedback.
I like the part where we killed him.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Mordecai?
It wasn't bad, I guess.
The end. So, what did you guys think?
That was really good, Tina.
Hell yeah.
That was honestly pretty fun.
Hey guys, that spy just coughed up the access codes to the Hyperion moon base. Anybody feel like blowing up a space station?
Hell yes, I do!
And so the Vault Hunters and their little psychopath headed back into the wasteland. Back, once again, into the world of blood and insanity they'd taken an all too brief vacation from.
Goodbye.
And in the days to come, they'd think of their fallen friends, of the adventures they shared, both real and imaginary. And they'd remember that no matter how bad things got, they were never truly alone so long as they had each other.
I love you guys.
Why did you cry?
And then Claptrap said something stupid and ruined everything.
But either way, she's forced to confront his death, and while was gone, he was still a part of her, which allowed her in the end to start the grieving process. Whereas in Borderlands 3, a little bit of an exaggeration incoming, I could hardly think of one character outside of our lead villains. I literally had to go and scour the wiki to find the tiniest of lists, so small it would have been the size of Trump's rendition of the Epstein files. But I did manage to find 7. But truthfully, these 7 have next to zero impact, both on the main story and with the development of their characters, such as Typhon de Leon, the first Vault Hunter, Jacobs Wainwright, heir to the Jacobs Gun Corporation, Maurice, the talking dinosaur, Balex, the AI Labubu.
That means you're gay.
Clay, a character that, just like this game, if treated right, could have been molded into something great. Lorelei, whose identity is just British.
Bloody Digistruct torpedoes! Get wasted, you wankers! Brilliant coffee. I'm feeling right ragged, and when a commander makes mistakes, people die.
And Ava, the insufferable child which caused the Borderlands community to go up in flames, as she caused some of the worst decisions to be made. She was just an annoying, angsty teen with a whiny voice. All of these characters were introduced into Borderlands 3, and yet they're all so short-lived, aside from Ava. Ava was the one character, if they were to be Thanos snapped the same way she got her mentor killed, players would probably rejoice. Oh, yeah, did I not say? Maya's dead. The character you played in Borderlands 2, just like Roland, gets killed by our antagonist. But this time, the character's death was way more avoidable had Ava not been an entitled teen. Just gotta feel bad for those who played Roland, then Maya. Let's just hope those who then picked Flint
Reporting for duty, boss.
don't have a bad day. Instead, if she actually listened to her mentor, staying on Sanctuary, because, as we all know, vaults are dangerous as fuck, Ava wouldn't have been in the room when the twins showed up, and thus wouldn't have ran her mouth about supposedly becoming a siren. Yeah, Maya says Ava is going to be a siren, but never explains her reasoning. But, you know, knowing this type of information, which is invaluable, as we know next to nothing about them, yeah, just forget about that.
Is that how you think this works?
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
But yeah, Ava runs her mouth, provoking the twins. Then if she wasn't there, Maya wouldn't have had to hold back, as Tyreen took Ava as a hostage, and Maya wouldn't have done the same to Troy, which inevitably resulted in her death. But where people were outraged by this in the first place, that wasn't the end of the hate train, as immediately after, they share a moment of silence, and Lilith gives a speech. Ava once again runs her mouth, putting the blame squarely on anyone that isn't her, particularly Lilith.
Open the vaults? That's all you have to say. Maya's dead because you wanted to open the vaults. We should be hunting down the Calypsos and making them pay for what they did.
It's not that easy.
Maya always told me a Vault Hunter runs toward the fire. All her stories were about you. You saved Pandora. You killed Handsome Jack. You're supposed to be the Firehawk.
I don't know what I am.
Figure it out, Lilith, before you get someone else killed.
Angry things aren't going her way, and that this legendary Vault Hunter will seemingly do nothing in direct retaliation, which could be said as Ava grieving, but even after this, there is no redemption. There's no learning from her mistakes. While this is generally realistic behavior of a teenager, as a character, especially one in the Borderlands universe, it ultimately makes her completely unlikable with no redeeming qualities. But that wasn't always the case, because in the director's cut, we got this.
Gone where? Athena's? Why would she leave you with me?
No, she's gone.
Oh, Maya.
No. There's no way. Damn it! I should have dealt with those parasites. I should have been down there at the vault. It should have been me. Don't be silly. What good would you have done?
Nothing. I was there. I saw it. I watched them turn my only friend into dust. Maya was one of the most powerful people in the universe. They just...
Ava.
You're not the Firehawk anymore, Lilith. There's nothing you could have done. She's gone, okay? This is all that's left of her. This is all I have left. I watched her die. What do you think I felt?
That's not what I meant, but... if you need to talk.
I don't need anything, okay? I've lost people before. I had nothing before Maya found me. Now I have nothing again. Hermes is all the family I need.
Vault Hunter, thank you for getting Ava back safe. Maybe you should go talk to her?
Why this was cut from the final game, I genuinely cannot fathom. And anyone else who saw it also agreed this is a cutscene that we should have had. It shows Ava still being a reactive teen, spouting harsh words, but not ones that are unrealistic, like those in the final cut.
You saved Pandora! You killed Handsome Jack! You're supposed to be the Firehawk!
I don't know what I am.
Figure it out, Lilith! Before you get someone else killed!
Ava.
You're not the Firehawk anymore, Lilith. There's nothing you could have done. She's gone, okay? This is all that's left of her.
Also, it shows she's not just angry, but overwhelmed and broken. With the loss of the only person she trusted, and her defensive walls of anger that she used to protect herself begin to crack. Showing that there's a much deeper and more complex side to the character.
It's my fault. I got her killed.
It's gonna feel like that for a while, but it's not true. We both know Maya. She was always willing to risk her life for something that mattered.
Then why did she waste it on me?
Maya saw something in you. She believed in what you're going to become. She wanted to light the way for you when she was gone.
She used to tell me all about what you did on Pandora. About the Firehawk. She said you always ran toward the fire. You sounded like everything I ever wanted to be. So much strong. A leader with a whole army at my back. Invincible.
None of us are, Ava.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, sounds like Maya left out a lot. I made my share of screw-ups. Running toward the fire all the time gets you burned.
But you never got anyone killed.
I did. Someone I cared about.
Oh.
As she then blames herself. This allows Lilith to bond with her and start patching things up, as she too opens up about losing someone, showing that they aren't invincible, no matter the stories. Not only was this a great way to develop Ava, making her more likable because of her flaws, but the fact that even she recognized them. To add to this, you can learn through echoes, growing up, she had always been alone, until she met Maya. Hopping from ship to ship, abandoning anyone she felt as if she was growing attached to. So she didn't have to hurt the same way she did when she lost her family.
Then welcome to the family.
Which, when put into terms of the final cut, outside of her motive to kill the Calypsos, would suggest her character would have zero issue jumping the Sanctuary ship to go at it alone once more. But in this director's cut, we are shown her resolve, doing everything for the sake of Maya, choosing to learn and train to become a Crimson Raider and a Vault Hunter to make Maya proud. So why? Why did we miss out on a cutscene that radically changes and improves the overall experience of a story-driven game? Budget and time constraints. This seems to be a growing theme in the gaming industry. Despite the well-documented knowledge that is crunch, so common it could have been the first question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, video games are never given the proper time to develop anymore. Investors and CEOs want to see the results sooner rather than later, even if it does ruin their reputation and possibly cost them millions more. and thus, key pieces of content get cut, and we're never given the game we really wanted or deserved. This is why games like Elden Ring, like God of War, Baldur's Gate 2, and Red Dead Redemption 2 all perform so well. As story-driven games, with minimal flaws, they put the chefs in the kitchen, told the waiters to do their job and wait, while they cooked up a masterpiece. The customer will lick that plate clean, but if they show up with half the meal, customers aren't gonna dine there again. Then there's the budget constraints. It also seems that every new game is facing budget constraints, making it sound more like a viral marketing buzzword than an actual fact of the matter. Because Borderlands 2 had a budget of roughly $30 to $35 million. And Borderlands 3, with a budget quadruple that, $140 million, it just doesn't add up. Because while we get slightly better graphics, you're telling me it takes over $100 million to make this much of a difference. Yeah, your money is better spent on Moxies. Which is why I say budget constraints is just a buzzword, because all the numbers are inflated and do not proportionally represent the end result. And in a way, I would say if the employees were treated and paid well, then this high of a budget and facing constraints would be more justified. But compared to that of others, they're on the lower end, which tells me all I need to know about where that money is actually going. Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent. TLDR.
We're not gonna go crazy spending our winnings, and we're not gonna let this money change us.
What are you talking about? This money is our ticket to the good life. Starting now. I just bought a giant room full of gold coins, and I'm gonna dive into it like Scrooge McDuck.
Now for the gameplay. Fortunately, now I can make a stop for the hate train. As we talk about the overall gameplay, I think both games, while not perfect, did a fantastic job in making fun FPS experiences. Such as in the case of gear. In both titles, guns and their styles are directly linked to what brand they are made by. But it's not just the guns, it's also your grenades, your shields, your class mods. Pretty much all your gear will be an amalgamation of different brands which best suit you. Such as Jacobs, for the old-fashioned amongst us, Hyperion for their super advanced sci-fi, Dahl as a militant design, and Torg looking like they were made from bombshells.
When God closes a door, I blow it the f up!
But it's not only aesthetics that define different gear and brands, but also the way these guns function. As Jacobs being the traditional weapon, they don't use any sort of elemental effect or fancy firing mechanics. They solely are traditional Western-inspired weapons using wood and bare metal with no colourful finishes. They have high recoil and even higher damage. As said by Marcus, if it takes more than one bullet, you're not using a Jacobs. While on the other end of the spectrum, Malawan only manufactures guns with elemental effects, which can either give you a massive advantage or a significant disadvantage. Because if you don't have the right element for the job, you're gonna want something like a Torg, which is low accuracy, slow to fire, but is benefited by both extremely high damage output and explosion damage. And this is an element of gameplay I think Borderlands does great so far, which other games should have also implemented by now. Because whereas in other games you just have ammo and gun variants, there's nothing else that really sets them apart. But having an in-game brand linked to a style of weapon both fleshes out the world building as to why some brands are beneficial over others, but also why only 3 brands make combat rifles while the others don't. Furthermore, it also allows developers and players to expand their gun pool, allowing people to play the game more how they want to play it. For instance, when replaying Borderlands 3 for this video, I would often lean towards Jacob's snipers, shotguns, and pistols, sometimes favoring Dahl SMGs. Meanwhile, Dunk Donuts would often plan his engagements and weapons according to the elemental effect. But that's not the only thing both games do well when it comes to the gameplay, as the enemy variety, while a bit samey in Borderlands 3, still innovated in a positive way, as the pool of different enemies as we leave Pandora expanded, such as the inhabitants of Eden 6, Grogs, Jabbers, Ramatras, and such.
What is
Evolution has a destination. Not the combat nature, but the superseded. The final, glorious evolution.
Oh, look at that guy.
Hi. Then the Malawan army invading Atlas with riot troopers, these Destiny-ass looking spheres, flash troopers, heavies, jet troopers, and NOGs. In Borderlands 2, we had Skags, Psychos, Bandits, Threshers, Racks, Bullymong, Rats, Loaderbots, Spider Ants, Varkids, Goliaths, Constructors, and Stalkers. By the way, I'm 100% forgetting a lot, but when you have to remember stuff like this game has straight up Minecraft creepers, makes it a little bit difficult. But yeah, it does make it feel like a fever dream at times, especially when you have to kill a mutated badass Super Saiyan Omega 3 Fire God Goliath. It's not a real thing, by the way. I hope not. Borderlands 3 also has its own fair share of Easter eggs, such as the Power Rangers and the Indo Tyrant. But I think it struggles with a bit of a balancing act in this game, at least compared to the last, because the story centers around the Children of the Vault, so you're going to see a lot of psychos, obviously. At the same time, while I wasn't too upset by the loss of the rat enemy type, the lack of loaderbots and variety of living creatures like the Threshers and Stalkers was to the game's detriment. Nothing major, don't get me wrong, but I wish there was more inclusion, especially in the story as some sort of barrier. But I also wanted to add, outside of the enemies and guns, while Borderlands 3 is harshly criticized for its ease to obtain legendaries, which is fair. I mean, I'm not halfway through my current playthrough and I've already got a full loadout of them. At the same time, common and uncommon weapons litter the battlefield. So I think there needs to be a finer balance of these rarities, as the rares and epics are rarely seen outside of boss battles, which do often drop legendaries. So while that definitely could do with rebalancing, just make rares and epics more obtainable while legendaries less so. Then again, who doesn't love a legendary gun that both drops enemies and my frames? Then the addition of sliding and clambering mechanics have been a great addition to the gameplay, as it made fights more fluid, feeling more like this badass as you slide by your enemies, blasting them with a shotgun or rattling them full of bullets. This stuff, while popularized by other titles, definitely fits into the Borderlands playstyle, and I'd like to see more things like this implemented in 4. The rights and the wrongs. So while my intentions with this video were to explain why Borderlands 2 is great, which it is, and why Borderlands 3 sucks, which it does, kinda, I've noticed the biggest thing to me, which caused Borderlands 2 to succeed where 3 failed, is its writing. The writing I personally believe is the main thing that killed Borderlands 3, as it felt like they made a first draft and said fuck it, that's good enough, without having anyone look over it. From the Vault Hunter's unique motives, the Avengers endgame level of character cameos, quirky villains and jokes, if we're allowed to call them that. The thing is, it feels like they knew what they had made was a load of rubbish, because they seemingly retconned it in the end of the game, as Troy, who created a whirlwind of questions and confusion, just by his existence alone is killed off, filling in the pothole with water instead of dirt. And so does Tyreen. She dies returning the powers to their rightful owners, and mostly putting the whole story practically back to square one. So alongside losing another notable character, replaced by an annoyance who has been criminally mistreated by the writers, we don't learn anything new, and leave us with a mind-boggling cliffhanger we'd have to endure for the next 6 years. But thankfully, after looking at the Borderlands 4 trailers, I can say it seems they may be on the path to redemption. New Vault Hunters with original backstories. I mean, Vex is an ex-CEX worker. God, that's a mouthful. What we also haven't seen before is new interesting gameplay, with our Siren being able to fly, and then Yolt is reliant on his exosuit to survive different gravities, and looks like the combination of a jet, riot, and badass soldier from Borderlands 3. which honestly sounds and looks like the coolest way to innovate on your characters, but also helps set up his potential weakness during the story. And Amon, who, yes, does look like Reinhardt, he's someone who's already had experience with the Vault. Whether he's already a Vault Hunter is yet to be seen, and then there's one more left, but nothing that I've seen about them yet. Then the humor seems to be a lot more on point. The story is much more dark, gritty, and meaningful. We see very few returning characters so far, and an expansive world with various terrain, both new and unique enemies, but also returning ones, with a twist. So let's just hope there's nothing that could cause this game to bomb.
I'm the conductor of the poop train!
Anyways, that was my thoughts on Borderlands 2 and 3. There's honestly a lot more I'd have to say, and a lot more I could nitpick, but to be honest, I'm looking at this word count, and I don't think I could put myself through that, let alone get this out before Borderlands 4 releases. So, let me know your opinions on what made Borderlands 2 and 3 good or bad. That's all for now, so Mayday, it's Kay, and...
That's the end of my show. I'd like to thank Mr. Talk about musical guest Kyle Moderation. Good night, everybody! So, did you actually want to ask me the question, or...?
Tina said good night, Moxie! Show's over!
Motherfucker!